So for our next presentation within this rapid series, we are joined by LyondellBasell Process Safety Analyst, Brett Maher. Brett has a passion for process safety education and has authored major incident cases for IChemE Safety Centre. Welcome to you, Brett.
Hello. So today I'll be talking about effective management of critical controls, and really what was missing, I guess, from the little advert was the last part, which was that this has been a learning journey. So it has been a journey that we've undertaken over a couple of years, and that's what we'll be talking through today. So what we're going to look at is where we were, I guess, and some of the challenges that that sort of prompted us to take this journey, why we wanted to change, the best practice search that we undertook to find a methodology that we felt would work for us, how we implemented that methodology, and some of the learnings as we went along. And finally, we'll look at, did it meet what we wanted to achieve as we undertook this process? So firstly, in 2009, we found ourselves having a number of different calls to action from different stakeholders. So we know we needed improvement, and but what direction did we take? So, for example, we had a new managing director, and although he didn't have a hazard facility background, he wanted more metrics for this to be a greater focus, so he could see, like what they talked about in the last presentation, the health of our system. Is it healthy or is it unhealthy? We did have a critical control program, so we have been the MHF for a long time. So we did have a critical control verification program. But I think people dreaded that system because it would take approximately up to 2 days to verify a critical control, which is a very long time. And it really relied on one person's knowledge, and particularly for our sill-based systems, the system relied on that one person. So as much as a process engineer or mechanical engineer might be assigned a critical control to verify, at the end of the day, it ended up on that person having to help them out. So we really wanted to improve that process, and we didn't have good guidance within our company or within the Geelong site for verifying critical controls. And finally, we had a WorkSafe focus. So when I look back through a number of the oversight reports from WorkSafe coming on site and doing audits, there was always a mention that although we were able to demonstrate that our critical controls were healthy, it was a very laborious process, it wasn't efficient, and they really recommended that we look into a different critical control measurement and make that more accessible to management so they could see the health of our systems. So they were the driving sort of calls to action. But what we wanted to do, rather than take off in 3 different directions, we really just wanted this to be one project, but we really weren't sure how to achieve that. So we wanted to take all these objectives and complete it with one project. We went out looking for best practice. So we approached a number of sites to see how they were managing critical controls, and looking for also how that would integrate with our system. So we were lucky that one company did share their critical control management process, and it really aligned with what we felt we needed. So this isn't from that company. This is an example we've mocked up. But first of all, there was that visual aspect of this. So right at the top of for each bow tie, we created one of these sheets. So right at the top, it had that visual factor. It's red or it's green. And you could easily see if critical controls were healthy. We also, for our critical controls, it had a listing, so they were known to people. What were the critical controls in that system, and a bit of a description. And probably shockingly to us, when we were taking 2 days to verify critical control, this company was verifying their controls once a quarter. And we were certainly not in that scenario where we could achieve that. So really what they must have been doing was something very different to us, and a good improvement. And finally, it also had a comment section, so you could leave a comment. So it would sort of capture that information and make it visual to everyone as well. It's not hidden away in a report. So we saw this system and we thought this is the way we want to go. We had 14 bow ties, so we thought we could produce 14 of these sheets. So in late 2019, we presented this to management and were able to sign off that this project would go ahead. And we dived in. So we found ourselves a student. So we sponsored a student over vacation program to give us a starting point, and we set our direction. So the 4 steps we were going to take were bow tie simplification, a health check spreadsheet, which I just showed in the last slide, control verification templates, which we'll look at, and a site overview sheet. So the last step was to produce a site overview sheet where you could see every critical control and its health. So from here, we just dived right in. Our first step was around bow tie simplification and health check spreadsheets. So probably the easiest place to start, we had quite mature bow ties being MHF, and so we were able to reduce our critical controls from 60 controls down to 15 controls or so. We did, through this process, realise that some of our critical controls were a bit woolly. They were more management systems. So we took the time and updated our safety case, and probably focused in here more on our engineering controls. And as you can see, it's just, this process was pretty easy, but it gave a very visual select. And then we built our hazard check sheet from here. And one thing we did was just start with one bow tie. So we picked our hardest bow tie, which was our reactor, which may have been not a smart move, but the theory was if we could prove this on our hardest bow tie, then we would be able to roll that out to all of our other bow ties. So that was our working logic. Then we moved on to creating the individual sheets that people would use to audit or verify that the critical control was healthy. So this needed to be, so we set out, this needed to be a simple process that anyone can follow. So the mandate I put out was that anyone should be able to walk off the street, pick up our critical control verification sheet, and be able to undertake that verification. There was lots of things we needed to check: maintenance requirements, document locations, instrument testing, process demand events. We also wanted to use these to, LyondellBasell has requirements for independent protection layers. We wanted to use these to verify that we were meeting all of those requirements. This created quite a number of challenges, and probably the biggest challenge, certainly at the start, was, I guess, if you want to simplify a system, you need to understand that system. So understanding that system took a very, very long time. We really spent a lot of time breaking down the task, every little bit of that task, understanding what was required, when it was required, where that information was, and understanding that system. And other challenges were, where is the data stored and format? We were surprised at a lot of Excel spreadsheets being used for this. Everyone had a different template stored in a different location. And yeah, so there was a high rely on Excel. So a lot of the verifications required using very specific software. A lot of people didn't even have access to that software. So we were asking them to undertake a task that was impossible for them to do. And we found they had no idea how to use it. So they were some of the challenges that we faced. So you've been asked to verify this system. well, why don't you also learn a little bit about it and know where that information is, so when you come back. So we put visuals of the loops, list the relevant trips, showed feedback loops, and that sort of information. So, and then we actually moved into the verification stage. So to address some of our challenges in terms of software, where information is stored, we built very specific, this is how to do sheets. So the example shown there is step by step. Check out this box, go here, this is what you type, this is how you look for a process demand in this software. So they took a long time to create, but very usable. And we just ended up with one document. So we didn't create these for every single critical control, one document, and the methodology is used the same for all of our critical controls. So a very useful document, puts the information in the hands of whoever wants to understand how to verify these, and has been very, very useful. So I guess just going back briefly, so we've built about half at this stage. For each of our critical controls, we've built about half of the critical control verification sheets, and we're currently working on the other half. About a year into our project, we decided that it was really important for us to jump ahead and build a traffic light system for all of our critical controls on one sheet that everyone could see. And I guess, for example, our general manager wanted metrics. We've spent a year building our critical control templates, but he's still not seeing any metrics. So it was important for us to build these sheets. And so what we looked at was creating one sheet that red or green and the health. And initially, when we ran our first pass, it was quite shocking on how many were red. But what we found was we could not achieve having an overview sheet if people continued to use Excel. So Excel had to go, and we had to use SAP. So we had to really drive this in I think a very positive direction. But some of the other challenges there were not all the tags were in SAP, so we had to do a comparison of the safety manager with our SAP system. Dates were wrong in terms of when the verifications were required. The start date and the end date were the same, so as soon as SAP flagged that it needed to occur, it also flagged that it was overdue, making it red. So there was a lot of challenges in moving this from Excel to SAP, but definitely a positive move, and really the only way I think we could move forward in having a robust system. So we're quite a long way, I guess, through our journey. If I could go back and start again, I would change this process. I would do the bow tie simplification first. I would then do the site overview sheet, so that one big sheet with all the red and greens on it, then the health checks, and then I would look at the control verification templates, which we are still working on now. So I guess recapping where we started off, so we knew we needed improvement, but we weren't sure on our direction. And where are we now? Did we meet our requirements? First of all, we now have our overview sheet, which shows our metrics. So I think we definitely met that. And we also had a new site manager start, and we're able to very clearly show him, without much knowledge of the process, these are our critical controls. You can see if they're healthy, or you can see if they're unhealthy, and you know where to put your attention. In regards to control verification, so it was originally taking 2 days. So that now is down to about 30 minutes to an hour, depending on who does that. And some of the feedback has been, well, most of the feedback has been extremely positive. People used to dread these. I doubt they look forward to them now, but I think that they know that it's a much simpler process now, and they can just work through it and hopefully learn something from Does our process rely on one person? No, it doesn't rely on one person anymore. We've got good guidance for people to follow. And thankfully that person, well, not thankfully, but that person left. So we would have lost all that knowledge if we hadn't captured it in this critical control project. From a WorkSafe focus, I'd like to hope that we met the requirements. We're building a critical control new program. They've been along with us for most of that journey, and I guess they've asked us to speak here, so we must be doing something right in that direction. So overall, it's been a massive learning process. We've closed a lot of gaps, so particularly with SAP and knowledge retention. So we've closed a lot of gaps as we've gone along through the process. And we still have a long way to go. We're certainly not able to verify all of our controls quarterly, but we're going to keep working on this system. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity. I think we were lucky ourselves in that someone was willing to share their best practice with us. So I'm very grateful to be able to share our learning journey with everyone.
Thank you so much, Brett, again for your presentation.
Thank you very much.